As I am getting older, one thing that I am realizing is so important is intentionally taking the time to stop everything that we're doing and take stock of where we are and where we're going, and whether or not the things that we're doing, the people that we're surrounding ourselves with, and the environment that we're in are helping us get closer to the life that we want to live. It's important that we do that voluntarily, because if you do not find the time, life will find it for you, and it will always be uncomfortable. So I want to talk about that in this video today. I also want to talk about where I have been for the last several months, why there have been no more uploads on this channel, and where we are going forward. This is probably going to be a pretty frank discussion and a pretty honest one, and it could get kind of long-winded, so feel free to treat this like a podcast episode or something that you can just put on in the background. Maybe you can fold some laundry or something while you listen to me try to get these thoughts out. I want to share all of this, one, because there is a little community of really kind people here who have extended me a lot of grace over the last years. I have been working through everything, left me very kind messages and extremely thoughtful words, and I want to share this with you, but then also for my own sake, I feel that verbalizing all of this and getting it out into the open is very, very important for my own healing and processing of everything that has happened over the last year and change. So around 6 months ago, I uploaded a video here talking about creativity and YouTube and the algorithm monster. And whether or not it was clear from that video at the time, and I'm sure that it probably was, I was really going through some shit at that point. When I made that video, I really hoped that me saying those things and getting all of that out there would sort of put a cap on everything that I was going through. But I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit by saying that, so let me step it back even just a little bit further, and let's go back to the beginning of 2023. At that point, I had been uploading videos on this platform for around 5 years, and my channel growth over that time has been pretty slow. And I've always sort of blamed that on the fact that I was never very clear on what the focus and goal of my channel was going to be. I didn't have a topic that I was focusing on. It's sort of a fly by the seat of your pants, throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks, just treating this as a canvas, more or less, for me to just test out creative things that I wanted to do. And it was a lot of fun, but it obviously has not been lucrative. I mean, it's very hard to make money on the internet. But as I've gotten older, everything that I have done, more and more so, has been done to facilitate and enable me living the kind of life that I want to live. Specifically, to be outside as much as possible and not around too many people. So as long as everything that I am doing in my life is allowing me to continue to do that, I'm pretty happy. And so I figured if I was devoting all of this time to making these videos here, sharing my life and our travels and our adventures and our highs and our lows, that I should probably see if I could be a little bit more intentional about it and see if I could really do YouTube, really be a YouTuber, have this be my shtick. Now, depending on what generation you're from or your perspective on the world, that might sound like an absolutely insane thing to say, but at the same time, in the day and age that we're living in, where it seems like influencers, you can't throw a rock without hitting one, and people are racking up millions and millions of views for very, very silly things, it doesn't seem like making money on the internet is such a far-fetched concept. And if they can do it, why couldn't I? And so I decided that I was going to buckle down and get serious and really treat my channel like a serious endeavor and hold myself to a schedule and create content with a focus behind it, not simply always just sharing my life, but also trying to offer a service or offer a product. In essence, I was seeking to commodify my life more than it already was, to further turn it into a product that people would want to consume. That was the advice that had been given to me by somebody else who is more successful in this space. And on the face of it, I don't think that it's necessarily bad advice, but I think that there is a lot of other stuff inherent to being a YouTuber that people don't see until you are in it, actually doing it. And even then, it can be very, very difficult to verbalize exactly what it is like being in this space where you are alone, yet simultaneously exposed and at times perhaps even overexposed to the entire world. And as I started to walk down this path of trying to be more serious in what I was doing here on this channel, those were things that I started to run into. And this all becomes relevant very, very quickly because in April of last year, while we were on the road, while we were traveling and dealing with a whole lot of other things that I will get into, I accidentally hit permanently delete on 98% of the footage that I had recorded up to that point. We are talking more than a month's worth of recorded video and photo stuff that I had shot all around a project that we were doing on our rig. I was really, really excited about putting this project together. The footage, even just thinking back on it now, it was going to be very good, and I was very excited about the potential that was there. And I lost it all, and it shattered me. And I didn't want it to. I have accidentally lost things before. I think anyone who's done this for a little while, you know something's going to get corrupted, or you're going to lose something, or something's going to get stolen. It's just a matter of time. You're basically playing Russian roulette with technology. And so it's just a matter of time until you get got. I wanted to just shake this off like water off a duck's back. I wanted to just move on and focus on the next project and not let it get me down. But for some reason, I was not able to do that. And maybe there were environmental factors at play. Maybe it was just the fact that we were in an unfamiliar place and we were trying to navigate getting adjusted to a new job and a new state and everything else. I don't really know. Maybe it was just the universe's way of telling me that it was time for me to fully address some things head on. And losing that footage brought up some really uncomfortable questions for me that I felt I needed to contend with. Two of the biggest were, are you sure that you are willing to monetize your life, every single aspect of it, the good and the bad, in order to support yourself? Are you sure that you want to turn your life into entertainment for other people? And the second big question was, if the internet disappeared tomorrow, if all of those views went away, if, let's say, I did the impossible and built a followership of millions of people, and then my channel disappeared overnight, or the internet disappeared, would I still wake up excited to create content, excited to share my life, excited to shoot something? Where is my drive for creating art coming from? Is it coming from within myself, or is it coming from an external desire to receive validation from strangers on the internet? Now, if this had been the only internal drama that I had had to contend with, then I think that I probably would have been fine. I think that I would have worked through those questions, and I have found the answers to them, and we will get to that in a little bit. But I think I would have been able to do that. I would have been able to pick up my camera and I would have been able to move on. But 2023 was not done with us, not by a long shot. And it feels like, in hindsight, losing that footage, it was like the first domino that fell. And after that, it set off a cascade of events that were not necessarily connected, but it just felt like we could not catch a break. While I was dealing with the stress of losing my footage, and also us traveling, dealing with some technical issues with the rig and adjusting to a new work environment, I had a health flare-up and I got pretty sick. And this is not something that I have ever talked about on the internet before, and it feels weird to be talking about it now, but I think that it's important for myself because I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but then just also, I don't know, maybe this will be a reminder to take care of yourself and pay attention to yourself and not wait around if something doesn't feel 100% right. But I have been dealing with a chronic and worsening health problem basically for the last 10 years. It has infected every single aspect of my life. It is something that I am forced to think about and deal with every single day. I do not buy small bottles of ibuprofen. Let's put it that way. And I'm not being intentionally vague or private by just calling it a health condition. The fact of the matter is, I do not know what is wrong with me. And it has taken a lot of years and a lot of pain and a lot of frustration to get to the point where now I am in contact and seeing people who are specialists who should be able to start getting me answers. But I don't want to just throw out names and diagnoses and things like that without actually knowing what's going on, just because I don't feel like that is being intellectually honest. I don't know what's going on, but it sucks. And stress 100% makes it worse. So I had all this stuff with my footage happen, and then I got really, really sick. And then a bunch of other things happened that continued to push all of this stuff with this channel and my content even further to the back burner. You know, I think I've already talked a little bit at this point about how summer 23 was not the summer that we thought that we would get. It was not at all what we were expecting. We chose to work in Missouri for the summer, which in hindsight was a mistake. We basically just picked a state that we had never been to before, and we told ourselves we were going to roll with whatever happened. But I don't think that we imagined that what we would end up with would be so terrible. I do not want to rag on the state of Missouri too much, because there are obviously lovely people that live there. But based on the environmental, political, and cultural climate that Stuart and I were exposed to while we were there, it is not a place that I would ever return to willingly. And while our working conditions were pretty good for the first half of the month, they plummeted during the second half. It was an incredibly hot summer, as I'm sure everyone remembers. It was oppressive in the Midwest, and the situation with our second set of employers was not positive. And then in the midst of all of this, Stuart and I decided that we were going to go ahead and get married that fall. We had gotten engaged in February of 2023, and we had been planning on getting married the following spring, but there were just a whole bunch of different reasons, most of them logistical, for why that wasn't really going to be the most convenient thing. And in hindsight, I'm so happy that we did that, because if I had to be planning a wedding right now, in addition to everything else that we have going on, I would probably lose my mind. So we decided to move the wedding up to fall, October 2023. And we decided to do it in Indiana, in my hometown, because we were already in Missouri and it was pretty close and pretty convenient, and I had the help and the resources and everything that I would need to plan and put together a wedding. So it just made too much sense not to do it. But because of that, that meant that it did not make sense for us to leave our work assignment in Missouri and do what we really wanted to do, which was beat it out west and find some mountains somewhere to hide out in. By the time we made it out that far, we would have almost had to have turned around and headed right back. It would have been a lot of wear and tear on our vehicle for no reason, a lot of miles, and it just did not make sense. Again, logistically, it just did not make sense. So we made the really tough decision to just stay put. That was for July and August, two of the hottest, most uncomfortable months of my life, and I am including the 2 summers that I spent in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, in a place where everything is so choked out by weeds that you could not see the sun rise or set in the morning or the evening, and at one of the most poorly managed state parks I have ever had the misfortune of working at. And this is not an expose on the Missouri State Parks or the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, but I have some things that I could say. And if you're a Missouri State resident, I am sorry for how your tax dollars are being mismanaged, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But on top of all of this, all right, so we've got my footage being lost, my declining health, our declining work conditions, and then the real kick in the teeth came when a very close friend and business partner of Stuart's essentially lost his mind, tanked the business, and turned on Stuart. Now, I am not going to go into too much graphic detail about that situation because it's not really my story to tell. I just got to bear unfortunate witness to it. But the stress and anxiety that situation caused further compounded on top of everything else. And I had another flare-up. and it was even worse than the one in the spring. And just getting through each day and presenting a united front to our employers and holding it together, it became everything that I could do. And it really did feel like God had placed a slab on our heads and the universe was just continuing to pile things on and trying to press us down as much as it possibly could. It was unrelenting. And the crazy thing about all of this, and the reason why I think this video is important to make, is because as I was dealing with all of this, as life was coming at us a million miles an hour and we were trying to make the most prudent decision for ourselves and our life at the time, we were navigating all of this drama and all of this upheaval. Every once in a while, I would have this thought worm its way into my brain from somewhere out back saying, you should film this for content, or this would be really good content, or something of that nature. You should pick up your camera and film. It was like this compulsion that I think I had sort of created in myself during the first 3 months of the year, where all of my energy and focus was going into content. How can I turn my life and what is happening right now into something that I can film and present to YouTube? How can I do that more efficiently? How can I do that more interestingly? How can I catch more people's views? And I think when you live in that mindset for long enough, and I only did it for 3 months, imagine what it does to somebody who does that for years, then you lose your sense of objectivity over your own life. At least that's what it felt like to me. It felt like, as I was trying to navigate and deal with all of this stuff, social media was kind of here in the background, just nattering and like demanding I give it my time and attention and create content and pour energy into this thing that I had been trying to build. What I needed to be doing at that point in my life was working through the trauma, working through the things that were happening, and not worrying whatsoever about content or filming or social media or anything like that. And yet there was that thought in the back of my mind, and the dichotomy, the contrast between what I was dealing with and this compulsion to continue to feed this image that I had curated online, it made me feel physically ill. And so as I was struggling to navigate all of this and the year and everything that was coming up, I can honestly say that my mental health was at its absolute worst. I have always been a generally pretty happy person and a very emotionally balanced person, which is not to say that I don't wear my heart on my sleeve and that I don't get very fired up and emotional about things. But when it comes to living my life, I've always felt that I have a pretty good grasp on my mood and on my emotions, and I'm able to conceptualize things and step back and see the forest for the trees and pick myself up out of the muck and the mire should I fall into it. But for whatever reason, and I understand now why, but at the time, in the throes of it, I didn't. The things that I had done in the past to help myself, to soothe myself, and to pick myself back up were not working. They were not giving me the release or the relief that I was hoping for. You know, the yoga just, it wasn't quite as like crunchy and good as it usually is, and my mind wouldn't settle enough for meditation, and you know, a glass of wine just brought up all of these dark feelings within myself, and you know, all of these various things that used to bring me joy did not bring me joy anymore. And it was terrifying because I realized that I was depressed, and I have never been a depressed person. I have never not been able to pick myself up when I have needed to. And the feeling of absolute powerlessness that gave me over myself and my life is something that I have spent a significant amount of time in now working through in therapy, because I was in denial about the fact that I was grieving and that I was sad, and I didn't want to be grieving and I didn't want to be sad. And I tried to rationalize myself out of it in so many different ways, tell myself that it didn't matter, that I needed to shake it off, that it wasn't something that was worth getting upset over, that, you know, there are people literally dying in other parts of the world, and that my little problem isn't that serious. And what I've realized over time is that, for one thing, those are all self-defeating things to tell myself during a time when I needed love. And also, trauma, pain, grief, and sadness are all emotions that are unique to the person who is experiencing them. And they are not a competition. And one person's sadness and grief has absolutely zero bearing on the validity or the pain of someone else's. And I was minimizing my own feelings and pushing them out of the way and telling myself some really unkind things in an effort to get past all of this. And it all just compounded and created a stew and an impenetrable sort of wall that I had to work through. I could not bust out of it. And one single YouTube video, sort of sharing some of my half-baked thoughts at the time, was not going to be enough to get me out of it all. I am so incredibly thankful for Stuart, for my husband, throughout all of this, because he was the one who held us and me and our life together during that time, and honestly continued to do so throughout the remainder of 2023. Without him, I don't know what I would have done. And everyone needs somebody in their life who's going to tell them that this too shall pass and that this too is something that you can overcome. And I have no shame in admitting and stating loudly that Stuart is that person for me. Out of everything that suffered during 2023, our relationship did not. And I feel incredibly blessed for that. Not everything that came out of the year was terrible. There were some really, really hard lessons, but there have been some really beautiful things that came out of it too. And one of them was a greater depth of appreciation for my spouse and for the support and the understanding that he extends to me. And actually, my relationship and the love and the respect that I have for my partner features heavily into this whole situation and what is going to be happening here going forward. If we go back 6.5 years now, or whatever it's been, to when I first started this channel, I launched this before Stuart and I were actually together. And so YouTube has always kind of been my thing, and he has always graciously followed along and been supportive and participated when I've asked him to, and reshot and takes and put up with all of my creative bullshit, and been amazing. But being a YouTuber has never been something that Stuart has wanted to do. That's never been on his vision board or in his life plan in any way, shape, or form. But one of the things that I was reminded of over the summer is the fact that I do not create content in a vacuum. Everything that I share, everything that I do, it has an impact on the people around me, on my family. And particularly when it comes to sharing the vlog style content, I'm not just sharing about myself and the things that I am doing. I'm also sharing intimate details about somebody else and the life that they are leading. Someone who may very much prefer to lead a quiet, unobserved life that is not on YouTube in any way, shape, or form. And for my own part, I think that I was in denial about that just a little bit for a little bit longer than I should have been. As I was having all of these really deep reflections about social media and my place on this platform and how I wanted to proceed, my relationships and the most important person in my life obviously featured heavily in all of those decisions. I do not want to turn my relationship, the most important and precious thing to me in my life, into a product for people to consume. And regardless of the thought and the intention and the care that I would put into sharing those kinds of things here, there would always be a part of me that would feel like I was exposing something that should be kept private between Stuart and I. And indeed, there are a number of facets of my life that I have realized that I would prefer to keep just for me, for myself, to look back on and remember and cherish and love. Things that are for my memory bank alone and no one else's. If I were to continue to vlog and do content the way that I had been up until spring of 2023, I don't think that I would be able to preserve that sense of privacy within myself as successfully as I would like to. And what privacy means and how that manifests is going to be different for everyone. We all have differences of comfort level, things that we're willing to share versus things we'd like to keep to ourselves. But I realized over the last year that if I was successful and managed to build the kind of following that I would need to support myself and my lifestyle, that I would be implicitly agreeing to some things that, frankly, I am not okay with. I have had to come to terms with the fact that I am simply not cut out to be the kind of YouTuber who picks up their camera every single day, films all day long, and then pops out a video at the end of the week for people to watch. I am just not that kind of person. I don't want to share that much of myself. I don't feel comfortable doing that, and I want to keep my life personal to me. And it's also just not something that I enjoy, that constant grind and the constant pressure to find new ways to film the same things and make it interesting and capture those views over and over and over again. It feels very unrelenting and, to me, very, very soul-sucking. And it did not bring me any kind of a sense of fulfillment. And obviously, as you now realize from the last half an hour of conversation, it has brought up a lot that I felt I needed to address in my life. And to say that my relationship with social media is going to be different going forward would be putting it mildly. In many ways, 2023 was a clarifying year. It introduced some very hard truths and taught me some very tough lessons. It also showed me the true depth and value of the people in my life and reminded me of the importance of trusting my intuition and listening to that still, quiet voice that so often pipes up trying to warn us, and we ignore it or turn it down because it's inconvenient in the moment. All of these things came through in 2023. The good, the bad, and the ugly. All of it required a lot of really deep introspection and work within myself. And all of it has netted the kinds of fruits that don't really translate well on social media, but which I feel have enriched me and who I am as a woman, has strengthened my soul and my resolve, and has given me a newfound appreciation and respect for my partner and the life that we have built together. I've been forced to define exactly what it is that I want and how I am going to go about getting there. It was, I think, life's way of forcing me to come to terms and define some very crucial things that needed to be cleared up, that needed to be dealt with sooner rather than later. And for whatever reason, 2023 was the year to make that happen. And it wasn't convenient for me, but in hindsight, it was absolutely necessary. One of the biggest things that I did was I decided to return to the Deep Dive Project, which is an endeavor that I launched a couple of years ago, wherein I essentially moonlight as an independent journalist. It is not something that I ever saw myself doing. I did not ever see myself operating in a journalistic space, but there is a need, and there are stories that should be told and things that people should hear. And I have felt compelled to do that there in whatever limited capacity I am able to for a really long time. Returning to that and reaffirming my resolve to dedicate my time and energy to that felt like a weight being lifted from my shoulders, because I think that I launched the Deep Dive Project and then kind of put it off to the side and had a sort of blasé attitude about it all. But the work that needs to be done there is too important for me to treat it like that. And I needed to recognize that and realize it and decide once and for all whether or not it was something that I was going to seriously devote my time and energy to, or if it was something I needed to cut loose completely. Obviously, I decided on the former. I have also just decided to let go of a lot of internalized self-images that I had created about myself, caricatures, or sort of these roles that I would assume or thought that I needed to assume in order to do a certain thing or live a certain lifestyle. I have cut all of that away. And that means that I'm kind of in uncharted territory now, because I am reinventing a lot of what it means to be a creator. I am re-examining how I want to show up on social media, what I'm going to share, how I'm going to share it, what this channel is going to be going forward. All of that is still very much in flux, and I don't have all of the answers to those things yet. But I have been returning to the places within myself that feel rejuvenating and affirming and positive and safe. And I have been focusing on building up creative pursuits that are a little bit different from just filming my life and our day-to-day activities. And I am still in a very fledgling stage with all of that. I am learning new things and reacquainting myself with things that I have not done since I was in high school. So where all of this is going to lead is anyone's guess. But what I can promise you is that whenever I do share something here, be it something creative or otherwise, that it will be coming from a place of authenticity and a place of wanting to share something because I think that it has value, not because I am trying to harvest a view or grow a subscriber count or anything like that. I have completely divorced myself from the idea of being a YouTuber in any pop culture sense of the term. I just don't care about it anymore, and I have realized that there are other things that I want to devote my time and energy to. In a way, I am very, very thankful for everything that came up from me accidentally deleting that footage, because I've been able to have a lot of realizations that I think if I had had them later on down the road, after I had managed to amass some type of following, or after I had sunk even more of my time and energy into this thing on the internet, I think I managed to save myself some heartache in the long term, maybe, or the universe did. I was led in the direction that I needed to go in, and although it was very, very uncomfortable at the time, having to contend with all of these things and face all of these aspects of life and reality and myself, it's all been very good, very necessary, and in the end, I think very positive. So that is where I'm going to leave things for now. Things feel very differently this time around than they did the last time that I recorded a video sitting on this bed. And I am happy to say that I feel significantly better this time than I did in that video. And I hope that the next time I find myself sitting here, I will feel even better. If you would like to keep up with me on social media, all of that stuff is linked down below. I am significantly more active on Instagram than I am anywhere else, so if you'd like to keep up with me, that is the best way probably to go about doing it for now. If you are interested in the work that I am doing with the Deep Dive Project, there's a link below for that as well. Please go and check it out, and I appreciate the support if you do. But that is going to be it for me for now. Thank you so much for giving me your time, especially if you made it to this point in the video. I appreciate it, and I will see you again very soon.